We got Pat McAfee. Who else? Because, the guy just owns that show. Although I do like he and Saban, the way they play off of each other,
Yeah,
Pete.
Saban's been
So
great addition.
let's take a look at how Pat McAfee was out for the Oregon-Ohio State game this weekend.
$20 million roster allegedly for that Ohio State team, and they have been an absolute.
He's talking about NIL. $20 million.
The reason why College Game Day is here, and the reason why it's 2 versus 3 is because of how good Ryan Day has had his team playing. With that being said, you come into these big trees, you smoke a couple of them, maybe.
Smoke a couple of them. Listen.
Oh, he is a peach, isn't he? I mean, he was doing this at Berkeley last week with the 30 Golden Bear and all that stuff. Now he's up in Oregon.
I'll take Oregon.
I don't think any of those other guys could do any of those songs, Pete, without a prompter running in front of them.
No,
that guy actually he lives and breathes this stuff.
He lives, breathes it. He talks about it on the radio every day, or wherever you listen to him. It doesn't matter. He's streaming. He's doing this and everything. He's on TV for part of his program, and then they take it off and everything else. But that guy's addition to ESPN, he's worth every dollar, and I know they paid him a lot, but he's worth it all, John. He brings game day to the next level because they were kind of getting a little bit boring. All these things look the same now, right? You got 4 guys on there. They all kind of talk about the same thing. They wear those funny suits with the sneakers on the bottom and all the rest of it. Meanwhile, this guy walks in, and every week he's got that belt buckle on. He's stripped off his shirt at Oregon. Yeah, that was classic.
And at this game, folks, what they've been doing, I'm sure many of you who watch know this, but they've been doing those field goals for both disaster aid. Thank God. That's great that ESPN does that, as well as money for the kid who's making the kick. And they have Saban. Saban was holding the ball this week, Pete.
Because Kirk had to go. Yeah.
So it was great. And the kid drilled it on the $100,000 one.
That's so great. And the week before, the kid at Cal, it was just awesome. Everybody felt like he sandbagged him. He didn't sandbag. He got lucky and he got the daggone kick. Oh, it was great. It was great. That is fun. Pat McAfee makes this thing worth watching every single week, wherever they go. I thought the Berkeley one still is number 1 all time. Oregon might be right up there with Georgia for number 2 spot, and I'm waiting to see. Maybe they can get one at Nebraska one of these days, John, because they're on a little bit of a roll, and that might be a fun place to be. I mean, you talk about football heaven.
They get Buffett out there, Pete.
That could be kind of fun out there.
He doesn't miss a game.
Right. Yeah.
The Oracle.
That'd be fun. That'd be great. All right, John, let's jump to some sports now.
All right.
So we were just talking about college football, but before we get to that, let's start off a little bit with the NFL. And I had this challenge that I wanted to throw out to you and me and try to figure out if we're on the same page. We're probably on the same page. We look at a lot of things very similarly when it comes to sports, but specifically football. But you might come up with a better second place team or maybe even a first place team. Who is the best team right now in the NFL? I'm not a homer because I was pushing back on these guys, but I'm going to say the Minnesota Vikings because they sit at 5-0. They just went through a bye week. Their only injury is the only concern that I have is Aaron Jones, the running back. He has done it all. He's averaging 5.5 a carry. That's in the NFL, by the way. He's averaging 5.5 a carry as the starting running back. He's catching the ball and doing an amazing job with that. He's everything to Sam Darnold at quarterback. And Sam Darnold is a guy who, that's why I was kind of bearish on the Vikings, quite frankly, John. And I was saying Detroit, maybe Chicago, for sure Green Bay. They're going to probably leave us, at the bottom. And that still could happen. But right now, Sam Darnold, he's got 11 touchdowns. He's got 4 interceptions, rather, sorry. But he's played well, and he's played well enough to win. And here's the murderer's row they had to go through. Now, Giants, forget about the Giants. But they beat the Giants in week 1. Then they come back and they go, all right, we're going to beat the 49ers. We're going to beat the Texans, who I think might be as good as the Vikings. But they lost that game to the Vikings when they were head-to-head. It might be different later on in the season. Then they go to Lambeau and they beat the Packers, right? I mean, and the Packers are They're the predicted winner of the division. And then you go to the, London, you play against the Jets. Jets do have a good defense, but their offense with Aaron Rodgers and everything else that's going on, not quite the same. By the way, the defense for the Vikings, John, they're number 3 in sacks. They got 20. Number 2 in running against them, which is an unbelievable number. It's like 67 yards in a game. And number 3 is points against them. I mean, they line up pretty good. Now, you got Baltimore, Washington, Detroit. You've got San Francisco. You got Tampa, all of which I think are damn good. Who do you put at your number 1 right now? Who's the Super Bowl contender right now, either AFC or NFC?
Lions.
I like that one. I like
Campbell. Campbell's got them playing at such a level, Pete. And, you could say that Dallas is, weak or this or that, or, Micah Parsons was injured and blah, blah, blah. But you don't see a Dallas team get beat like that. You don't see somebody put up 42 points. And so I'm saying Detroit. I don't disagree with you about the Vikings, but I'd put Detroit right up there alongside them. I think both are better than Kansas City. There, I said it.
And you know what? You might be right on that one too, because Kansas City's a little different this year than I think they have been in previous years. We'll see. They've got injuries too. They got a great receiver who's out. They've got a running back who's out. They've had some issues with injuries as well. But when you look at the Detroit Lions, you know who plays them this week? The Minnesota Vikings. So that we're going to get a little bit of an answer of, at least right now, what those two teams look like. And by the way, I'll hit it right now, and then we'll go to college football. But as long as we're talking pros, for the people who don't know this, Davante Adams just signed with the New York Jets today. And Aaron Rodgers gets his receiver, John. He's complaining about these guys. I like Aaron, and I'm trying not to get too negative, but he has been very negative himself. You can see him on the sidelines. It's pretty clear the issues he had with the coach, whether or not he got him fired or not, doesn't even matter. The guy's been fired. But he's got his receiver. I think the excuses are done, John. I don't think he can come up with anything else. So they better start winning, which they got close, but they better start winning football games now, because he already brought in a bunch of receivers from Green Bay, and now he brings this guy back in to ignite him. The one thing about Davante that I didn't like, John, I watched that show on Netflix, Receiver. Mm-hmm. His attitude was a little bit like Aaron's, and I don't quite figure out why they're so negative. They're and blaming other people. Sometimes I think as the leader, you got to accept that you miss they might miss a catch once in a while. You might miss a throw once in a while, and you know what? That got to go back and forth. And I just think that positivity has been missing for the Jets. Maybe this will switch it up. Maybe this gets Aaron a little bit of a smile on his face, and he starts getting the ball to Davante, and then starting to mix it around with the tight end and the rest of the receivers. I don't know. What do you think about this signing, though?
I think it's a good deal for the Jets, Pete, if Aaron puts those issues aside and just decides to go out and play football and then get to the sideline, talk to his offensive line, talk to the running back, talk to Davante and the receivers. If he does that, then this is a great acquisition. If he wants to be a pouty little puss, then no, it's not going to be good. And we both know that, because, you manifest what you give. And if all you're giving is, negative energy and pulling a towel down over your head and not talking to the coaches, not talking to the players, that's a big negative. That's not the way Aaron Rodgers used to play. And if he stays on that path, he will not win this year. But if he moves to a different path, I think, this could be the turn that the Jets need, because they could have beat Buffalo. They could have beat the Vikings. And did he have drops in both games? Yes, he did. But in the Vikings game, he threw 3 picks, Pete?
Yeah, I was going to say.
He doesn't need to look any further than himself in that game.
Yeah. All right, college football, then we'll get through it. And we can do this pretty quick, but Army-Navy, I don't know how many people are following this, John. They're both ranked, and they're both undefeated. So I don't know how far back you got to go to see those kinds of numbers in front of you, but it's pretty damn impressive. And I looked at the schedules, and there's no reason they can't maybe run the table, but there's one school that both of them have to get past. October 26th, Navy at Notre Dame. November 23rd, Army at Notre Dame. if they get past Notre Dame in those different, weekends, John, these guys got a real legitimate shot because they're playing different football than they used to always play. They're actually putting the ball in the air a little bit. They still run the ball, of course, but the reason they're ranked is they've kind of changed offensively, and it's working. And they're both playing extremely well. By the way, they play each other, so somebody's going to have a loss if they actually ride it through Notre Dame and everybody else. December 14th, Army-Navy game. How great would that be for college football? That's the only game in town that night and all the rest of it. But if they are both undefeated, John, and went through Notre Dame, would that be unbelievable for this country? I mean, it would get people pretty riled up again and pretty excited because Army-Navy's already got their own spot, their own game, their own everything. But this could make it even better. Even if they each have one loss, to hell with it. That would be awesome. But if they're undefeated, how about that?
Yeah. And I think they could be, Pete, because Notre Dame has not been that impressive, and these two teams have been.
Yeah.
And it's easy for Notre Dame to look past them. Even if they come in undefeated, it's easy for Notre Dame to look past them because they have some tough games down the road as well. So I don't know. That's a discipline that we'll have to see from both Army, Navy, and Notre Dame. Are all three of them going to be disciplined? Or are one of those going to look past the others, and then it's a problem? But yeah, December 14th, that's going to be a